Hello there, and welcome to another edition of the Soft Story, the State of the Art Branding Story podcast. Today, I'm delighted to have with me and welcome Deepali Naair, a toy and a czar, a marketing branding veteran, and who has supplied her trade over the last three decades or more. And I wanted to welcome her to the show. Welcome to the show, Deepali.
Thank you, Suresh, for having me here today.
It's a pleasure. It's an absolute pleasure. So let's begin at the beginning. At Soft Story, at State of the Art Branding Story, we believe that brands are actually conceptualized and constructed not in boardrooms or air-conditioned rooms, but in the belief systems. So today, with your permission, I'm going to be talking to you not as a CMO who's won multiple hats across multiple verticals, but as a cartographer of conviction. Okay, so before we decode the state of the strategy that you have and that you use across so many different brands that you worked on, let me decode the state of the heart, or as the state of the Deepali Nair's heart. Okay, so if you look at the career path, it's a lot of people might be envious of you. I'm sure about it, right? Because FMCG, Fintech, Biotech, conventionals. I mean, you look at the kind of the heterogeneous industries that you've traversed. I wouldn't want to define it as a career path. It is more like a constellation.
Thank you.
It is more like a constellation. So I wanted to understand over this 3 decades plus, I would say this beautiful saga, the journey that you embarked on. What is that moment? It could be a singular moment. It could be plural. It doesn't matter. Wherein the heart has actually completely overruled the mind in terms of a branding lesson, which you will not, even if you pay, get it in the best of these schools or boardrooms. What is that thing that is actually distilled for you?
It's actually a moment of wonder. The little girl who grew up in very small towns in North India has always had this sense of wonder, wanting to know and curious about, different things. At the heart.
Alice in Wonderland.
Yes. I actually get bored of the same things after 2-3 years, So when you use the word constellation, and when I was reflecting on my journey, and somebody actually recently calculated and said that you've worked on about 25 different categories, across my group CMO role, if I were to count, I think I approached everything with that wanting to know, with that sense of wonder. And at the heart of it is not being wanting to know the corporate or the brand or the organization. At the heart of it has been the consumer. How the consumer lives, how the consumer consumes, how the consumer thinks, how this brand is a little box which lives inside my consumer's head and heart. And wanting to know that and do the storytelling around it and do the enhancement there has been, I think, the motivator for me. Even when I have managed P&Ls, even when I've managed a sales role, in the B2B space, it's always been about, selling to this other person, who's sitting across the table from me and saying, okay, how can I make a difference to his heart, his mind, and what is it that he wants out of life, category, or my product and the brand.
So I think, as they call in design thinking, begin with empathy. You're in the shoes of the customer. You know exactly what she's looking for. And then you're looking at doing the other stuff as such, There's a beautiful coinage that we use, not that it works with most people, but it, something that we kind of define our MBA with the minimum viable audience is that don't try and find customers for your product or services. Find products or services for your customers.
Which is true. And I think if I reflect back on some of the very beautiful and successful things that I have done, it has always been, most people will talk to the customer or the consumer about just the category. And I've always approached it to say, what is happening in their life? How does my category, not just my brand, fit into their life? What is the motivation for the life that they have? And beautiful insights come out for your brand where you can touch the consumer's heart.
Completely. I think couldn't have said more, like was the famous P&G foot clock and different touch points in their life. How do I kind of remain intrinsic to them without being intrusive to them?
Yeah.
Right? Sorry.
No, let me actually explain. So, yes, in a very traditional way, FMCG would still look at the category, and not the consumer's life. I think in financial services, it was different. And I still remember that, we were a wealth management company where I worked, which is now Christian, 360 degrees. But the insight was about the fact that these were mostly people in the 45 to 55 age category. And what was happening in their life and what was most important to them was their children's future, their children's learning. And therefore, how did we do a wrapper around that to build a relationship, and not just will make you more money.
Yeah.
And that makes a difference.
I think true empathy, on display actually, right?
Yeah.
Which we redefine probably as consumer insights.
Yes.
So, forgive me, I think the shoe's on the other foot, Deepali. I know you also had a podcast called Being the CEO by Deepali Naair. Right?
Being CEO with Deepali Naair.
Deepali Naair, So, congratulations on that and all the best with that as well. I'm very curious to understand, because we strongly believe at SOHB Story that vulnerability and authenticity are extremely good competitive advantages, right? So, what is that one unaired episode that actually reflects all of this in raw, authentic, vulnerable form that you want to kind of look back on, that reflects probably to the ethos of state-of-the-art branding, and which you want to say that, okay, I must kind of air this now. The unaired episode, metaphorically speaking or even otherwise, what is your thought on that?
The boring part of it. So the boring part of it is that every single CEO, 36 of them, that I met, they were on time. Barring one of them, they came for the prep session. All of them were hardworking. That whole value of hard work, which I feel that, the Gen Z and the Gen Alpha may not think much of it in any way.
They will roll their eyes.
They will roll their eyes at it. Was actually the hallmark of success of, all the 37 CEOs that I met, the struggles and the questions in their mind, which we often don't speak about. We speak about successes, right? The journey that they have been through and grown with every experience they've had. And I think one sense of wonder and luck that has played a role is that in the early years, be at school or at college or their first jobs, they've had great experiences or great inspirations or great mentors. I think that's the other common thing, that I noticed. This is all, therefore, according to me, very boring and ordinary stuff. But I think this is what made them who they are. It's a bit like Bollywood, right? Lots and lots of people have talent. But a few people make it.
Everybody is a big B.
Not everybody. In fact, I think Shah Rukh Khan today perhaps is willing to talk about it because I think people around him are talking about how hardworking he is, how empathetic he is to other people, how invested he is in the success of everybody around him, right? And I think those are actually the qualities that I also noticed in the successful CEOs that I had. And I call this a bit boring because people are mostly not interested in listening to old world values. But to me, those stand out.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'm sure you've got some fantastic examples there, punctuality, discipline. There's a classic saying, of Zig Ziglar, which goes like this, I hope I get it right. And he's mentioned that you'll get everything that you want in life, provided you help others get what they want in life.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm sure some of those 36, 37 CEOs are actually been doing that, right?
Yes.
Or an SRK for that matter,
Yes.
Because I know how he looks up to his team and his people. And
also there's a realization when you get to the top that you can't do it alone. So therefore, the value of building a network of people around you, be it your immediate team, or be it, one of them actually spoke about the fact that how she has what she calls a board of advisors. So building that network and building that team around you is also something that they subtly, it came out more in the prep rather than in the actual podcast that they spoke about.
Okay. All right. Lovely. It probably sends a platform for us to delve into our next, probably a delicatized, two-edged sword. But I'm sure you kind of navigate that brilliantly. So you've been, without wanting to make it sound a little demeaning or anything, but the label that you have is, you're a futuristic brand diva, right? And your career or the constellation, if I may, actually that you look at are all of legacy institutions, Tata, IBM, your CK Birla Group, and all of the, HSBC, etc., right? So I'm very, very, fascinated by this. At the same time, how do you kind of straddle that? Because I'm sure it's a balancing act, right? It's not very easy to pull off, I want to understand your heart story from that,
I think two things happened over there. One is that I may have belonged to the legacy brands, but I have done startups in a manner of speaking. So 360 Degrees belonged to IFL, but it was a startup when I got there. BPL Mobile was a telecom startup, but it came from a legacy brand, BPL. I think somewhere the futuristic diva thing probably helped the recruiters also recruit me because they came from legacy backgrounds and I think they wanted somebody who could be the bridge. And it wasn't clear to me myself in my early years, but in 2016, I was working with my coach and, we were doing self-analysis of understanding what motivates me, what my areas of success are and how to, go to the next level in my career. And she came up with a beautiful term, which is called an edge walker. In fact, I'm tempted to read from my phone on ChatGPT, where I'm just going to do a quick search. Yeah,
viewers will be happy to hear that.
yeah. So this is how she said, while the search is going on, this is what she said to me. She says, this is who you are, Deepali, as a person. And this is a unique characteristic that you have. I'm an edge walker. And an edge walker is a person who operates at the boundary between two worlds. Disciplines, cultures, identities, systems, or eras. And translates, connects, or creates value precisely because they are not fully confined to either side. So I am most powerful at intersections if I were to go by the word edge walker and, across many tests and feedback and stuff like that. I think that's how I understood myself, which is that in a legacy space, I am the absolute futuristic digital person, technology person around, and yet I may not have worked for the new age brands. But thankfully, because of this, bringing this whole thing together, when I'm mentoring, I'm mostly mentoring the new age startups or entrepreneurs, people who are in the, let's say, a quick commerce space or e-commerce space or building MarTech, publishing tech, or advertising tech platforms.
Yeah, I think you thank you for sharing that, Edge Walker. It's a new learning for me. I'm very grateful to understand that. It also reminds me of a beautiful book and a concept written by Alan Candid called The Creative Curve. Okay, wherein he talks about whenever you want to do something which is seemingly offbeat or tangential,
yes,
you make sure that you layer the novel on the familiar.
That's right.
So you spoke about the bridge, right?
Yes.
See institutions at the same time, they want to be cutting edge, etc., etc. Because, Yanni also writes about certain examples in the book, one of which is a famous ice cream brand, Ben & Jerry. Okay, and super successful. All the brand, it is almost a given that it's a no-brainer that any brand that they launch in the market, any SKU would be a runaway hit, right? And one of the flavors that they launched was a flavor which is lavender. Okay, and lo and behold, it flopped miserably in the market.
Yes.
All right, and on feedback, they went back to the drawing board, and somehow when they melted it all, forget the pun, they realized that it was too avant-garde or offbeat for it to be kind of accepted. So they went back into the market as a vanilla / lavender flavor. vanilla is the most accepted. People feel comfortable with that flavor. And then the product again was a runaway success.
That's right.
So I understand. I think, that is a little bit of a metaphorical, departure. But I think I'm glad you share that with you,
That's a beautiful example. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome. So, you've done this so many times, right? Brand transformations, right? I'm very keen to understand, what is that invisible ink that you actually extract or distill, which is at the heart of connection, especially when you see it is placed, metaphorically again, in the light of a genuine human connection, what actually kind of translates. And it is completely, agnostic to industries.
Yeah.
You would have seen that multiple times, I presume, right?
Yeah. But I'll still explain it with an example. There are two things. One is, I go back to that sense of wonder. I don't think we have the capability of completely decoding the human brain. And therefore sometimes...
Thank God for that, right?
Yeah. And therefore sometimes you have the lavender failing, the flavor failing, but you have the vanilla plus lavender succeeding.
Yeah.
Now, if we were so smart, we would not have any brand failures. Right? But there are, right? And I'll just give you an example. I used to be with Marico, and I used to be the innovation champion and new products, champion. And we were testing a hair oil for hair regrowth.
Medicare?
No, not Medicare. Medicare was the...
Knowledge wrong, sorry, audience.
Yeah, Medicare was the lice...
The lice killer.
The lice killer. This, I will tell you how it...
That truth.
Yeah. It eventually got launched as therapy, parachute therapy.
Okay.
But I think the interesting thing was that first it came to us as hair regrowth, right? And there the logic in the numbers and the P&G and the, levers formula worked, where we looked at the data and we said it works only for 30% of the people. Sorry, it should not be hair regrowth, because if it works only for, 3 out of 10 people, it's not going to be a success, right? But then we noticed that for 8 out of 10 people, it was working to stem hair loss.
To stem hair loss.
Right. So then we tested it as a stemming hair loss product. To cut a long story short, we got these, we did 350 placements in a very traditional way, and we got the results back. There are two things that happened. The research agency presented the last slide, and they said, okay, everything is okay, but you must change the aroma of the oil. Right? Why should you change the aroma of the oil? Because every single person who has used the product in the product placement test has said that the smell is very bad. Okay? And we didn't change it when we launched it. You know why? Because this is where, I believe strongly that don't tinker with the package. They're willing to pay for it. They're willing to buy it. They're willing to use it. Yes, they've given bad feedback about the aroma, but to me, it's a bit like how Dettol worked in India because it stung.
Yeah.
And Savlon did not at one point of time. I said the bitter thing works in India. We eat the neem leaves.
Followed the gut instinct.
I followed that gut instinct. But I think with this whole logic of don't tinker with the package. I said, if I have to launch and meet my launch timelines, and if people are willing to tell me that, yeah, the smell is bad, but it's working and I'm willing to pay for it, then why go that extra way of changing the aroma and changing the package? Which is what I mean by the wonder and the acceptance of not trying to decode, how the human brain works. And it worked. So this was the product that eventually got launched as Parachute Therapy.
Lovely. It's interesting. That's a new insight, actually. And I think for all, with due respect to all the market research companies and all the quanties and the collies and the focus groups that we continue to do, I think a lot of the weightage must be given, a lot of respect must be given to gut instinct, especially when you have oodles of experience across multiple verticals coming in, right?
Yeah.
Because you're not trying to be saying that I'm going to be biased towards this for the sake of being biased.
Yes.
But there's so many different inferences that you already have, right?
True.
So you can go back to your system A thinking, with due credit to Daniel Kahneman, I think it works in a lot of cases.
So, Suresh, sorry I'm interrupting you, but I think it's a balance. Okay? I think in the example that I gave, the initial research of showing it's working only in 3 out of 10 made us took a decision, very research based, that look, let's not position it as a hair regrowth oil. Right? So research worked there. It's about, how you use the opportunity. Let me give you another example where research saved us. Okay. I was working on the brand Ratan Vanaspati. Okay. And we were looking at changing the graphics to refresh the brand. Now, the word Rath, all of us understand, stands for chariot, right? So we did a very interesting work of doing progressive change to go back to the to the consumers in the qualitative research to say how much change is acceptable, right? And we found it very interesting that the blue color, which a lot of the people who are above the age of 50 will remember, was something that we couldn't compromise with.
Safe and trusted.
Safe and trusted. The other thing, right? Something we didn't even realize, that somewhere our graphic artist, our creative director, had moved from, the bull or the cow being in the rath to a horse. Because in India, you expect, a chariot to be with a horse. And that's a movement that we did when we did to the consumer. And all of us had actually missed it. Okay? The consumer immediately picked it up and gave us a feedback saying, you ought to have a cow here. Because we are used to getting, in those days, Vanaspati was positioned as a cheaper ghee, right? So they said, we are used to, having the...
Dalda, right?
This is earlier than Dalda.
Earlier than Dalda,
Okay. Dalda and Rath used to be the two brands of Vanaspati in India, and they used to be called Vanaspati ghee. That's how the grocers sold it, right? So they said, we want the cow back. And we realized, and we said, no, the chariot can't have the horse, which is how a chariot has been forever and forever. So I think research has to play a role, and then your intelligence has to take over of not, I will say this in Hindi, ke baal ki khal nahi udharni chahiye.
Nicely put.
Yeah.
Is it the horse?
Analysis paralysis.
Analysis paralysis is the other way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is it the horse before the cart or the cart
And before the horse? Yeah. Yeah.
Good. So I go back. I'm very tempted to do that. So forgive me if I'm sounding a little repetitious.
Sure.
This 25 plus industry vertical kaleidoscope.
Yeah.
Okay. And when you look through that as a brand builder, what is the universal hard truth that you've been able to distill across? For example, as in the heart and minds of a Sapola customer or an IBM enterprise client or a Biocon patient, what is that universal hard truth? What is that central theme that connects, irrespective of whether you're B2B or B2C, irrespective of agnostic to verticals? What is that universal heartbeat that you see?
Being committed to your consumer or customer success. When you're selling Saffola or you're marketing Saffola to a housewife, you're making her successful at the task of her husband's health or family's health. Okay? When I'm using Saffola explainer to the cardiologist and explaining to them why safflower oil works better, I'm making the doctor successful at making his patients better. Right? When I'm selling an IBM service, let's say security services, or a server to the CIO, we are making the CIO successful at his work. No? So to me, a consumer success or being committed to their success in their lives, I think is the hard truth of all of it. If we can understand and be committed to somebody else's success, is I think the success of a brand manager, marketing manager, CEO, a brand or a corporation.
Interesting. So again, I hope I get my attribution right. This compels me to share this. There is this beautiful quote. I don't know whether it's Gary Burnback or someone else to mention that customers do not want your product or services. They want better versions of themselves.
Absolutely.
What makes them feel better, more respected, more authoritative. Whatever the case might be. Just exactly what you alluded to now, right?
100%. I mean, we can interchange the word success with motivation, actualization. We can use the Maslow's hierarchy to explain it, or the quote that you did. But I think loosely put, it is about their success or what they think is the next step elevation, in their lives.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Again, multiple hats that you wear, and wow, if it is, if I understand right, you also mentor women in startups. I do. A fabulous job, I think. Congratulations and good luck with that as well. Uh, if you want to kind of do a timeline and want to go back in time, a lot of us want to do that, right? But we can't. But what would be that one piece of advice you will give to a 25-year-old Deepali? As in this position of mentor, guide, coach, counselor, enhancer, facilitator, what would be that one piece of advice that you would give?
That's a tough one. Because I have the wisdom of truth now of how life has panned out.
Or also the curse of knowledge, probably.
The curse of knowledge, right? Yeah. I don't know if I am still wise enough to give my own self advice when I was younger, but I could not have predicted the amount of change that has happened in our lives. I started working when there was no mobile phones.
Yeah.
When email was not ubiquitous.
Yeah.
To the world today, where, and I often discuss it with my mother, who is 78, and she says this every time she makes me pay somebody, actually the local vegetable vendor mostly, on Google Pay, right? She says, this is wonder. Every time she does a video call, which costs nothing because of the Wi-Fi, with my son in Toronto, she says, this is absolute wonder, And I do, retain that same level of wonder and curiosity about everything, and I adopt new things. I think the only piece of advice and look back that I would have given to my younger self is just continue with your curiosity, continue with your sense of wonder, and you will get there, which I've managed to do. And I could not have anticipated the level of change. One piece of advice, the miss that I've had is, I've not journaled my life. I wish I had journaled my life. Now memory fails me a lot of times. So going back to anecdotes would have been beautiful as they happened.
I think a lot of us are in a similar kind of a space. Maybe you could start with it, because I'm sure there are loads and oodles of experiences and wisdom that one can bestow from, not just for yourself, but even for a lot of people, family and outside as well. Right?
Yes.
Yeah. It's a good place to actually segue into our next question. Again, given the kind of career path that you have, it's at an illustrious one at that. You have been recognized with lots of accolades, awards, trophies, etc., etc. And I'm sure there is a lot of place in your home.
I want to say this. I'm very grateful. Very grateful to universe. Very grateful to people around me who've, recognized me, nominated me, voted for me in juries. Very grateful.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think gratitude attitude is one of the biggest facets that you can have as an individual, as a human being, as a profession, right? What I was getting to, Deepali, was that the trophies of your business is, obviously there for everyone to see. I'm equally curious to understand the intangibles, the trophies of your heart. Okay, right? So the invisible facets of truth and success that you've actually been managed to distill, which have taught you lessons in branding, leadership, life.
Yeah.
I'm very curious to understand that, Deepali.
I think the trophies of my heart are the relationships that I've built. I know both young people and older people. And even if I've not spoken to somebody for 2 years, if I just message today for something that I need to know, I want to learn, I have possibly the best advice, that I can get because of the networks that I've developed. I can call up a few business leaders, CEOs, chairmen in their own right, who would take my calls and would guide me. I could call up somebody who's an absolute expert on the programmatic advertising side. I could call somebody who's an absolute expert on the publishing tech side. I can call today somebody who's an absolute expert on mobile advertising side, So the learning continues. So this is, to me, the real trophy, the real wealth. Simultaneously, I think what is beautiful thing has happened is that across the years, I've also got people who I would love to have on my team, and I have rehired people, knowing exactly what their skills and, capabilities are, because I could not have succeeded at all the things that I've done without having a great team, around me. So I do focus on people, including, let's say, my coach, who is totally committed to my growth. My executive business life coach, who's totally committed to my growth. And all the people that I have learned from. And I think those are the trophies. And I think the last one that I want to mention is my mom being proud of me. I think
Set exacting standards?
when I was younger, she did. In fact, now she tells me to take it easy. So I often say this, that, if I got because there's an episode around this, if I got a 98 out of 100 in maths,
Dusra do kahan gaya?
She was that mother, okay? Then where did the two disappear? Because maths is something that you should get 100 out of 100, So she was that mother. But I think she was also somebody who set a great vision for me in an era of a Marwari girl from a very small town, to encourage her to have a career, in her words in those days, which is not a second-class career to a husband. It should be a career equivalent to the boys and to the men, to set that vision. But I think what is very heartening is, and which is why I say the trophy, is that she's extremely proud of me. And the beautiful thing is that it's not her who says it to me. It's the people around her who come and tell me that, that, your mom's so proud of you. For example, the physiotherapist. Okay? Her physiotherapist is talking to me and telling me, do you know how proud your mom is of you, So I think that's the biggest trophy.
At work.
Yes.
Within the family also.
Within the family. They say that. That's absolutely true. Your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room.
Exactly.
That's like absolutely true. Yeah. Great one.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned about math and numbers and 98 upon 100, and right? Let me kind of go to the other side of it, where it is actually measurable or not tangible, right?
Yes.
And that is what I see in your career arc, right? You've been dancing with bites to biology, and kind of deciphering complexity into confidence, right? When you're building brands, and as we say in the state-of-the-art branding, what are the challenges that you use? Because it is difficult to kind of relay the intangible into, because in the YFM culture, what's in it for me culture, everything is a metric, everything is an algorithm, everything is something analytics, whatever it is. How do you translate that? Because you might know certain things, but it is not a number, right?
Yeah.
How do you kind of in a brand communication or a brand storytelling, espionage, if I may, how do you manage to do that?
I think the universe set me up for it.
Conspiracy theory.
Conspiracy theory. I studied maths and English literature at college for my graduation.
Beautiful combination.
And philosophy.
Oh, lovely.
Because at one point of time, the ambition was to be an IAS officer. Okay. But however, I landed being an MBA. But I think that balance of learning Shakespeare along with the maths and algebra and everything else and probability that was happening probably set me up with a very good balance of left brain and right brain thinking together. And I must admit that to the creatives I decode the math, and to the CFO and CEO I decode the creative. And I think that's a balance that I also achieve as an edge walker, of technology to the marketeers.
Cross-pollinating.
Yeah. Also technology to the marketeers. So for example, I'm probably one of those advanced CMOs, if you may call it, who just developed annual report cover and design by doing just 1 day long Gen AI workshop with a facilitator. And then took it to the chairman and have now given it to the creative agency to just fine tune the visuals. No? So I have younger people in the team, but I'm an early adopter of most, tech things. I don't know if that answers your question.
No, I'm getting there, and I'll probably dovetail it to kind of wrap this particular question. You mentioned about algebra.
Yeah.
Okay, and again, I'm a big fan of the algebra of trust. All right, right, especially because there are so many challenges in a frenetically commoditized and increasingly commoditized world. Okay, everybody looks the same. Every product or brand is more or less looking the same, and sometimes it seems that we are spending millions and millions of dollars or millions of rupees to get into the same boat. Yeah, I want to look the same like the other. And the birds of the same feather flocking together, right?
That's right.
So knowingly getting into red ocean territory, we thought making that quest for blue ocean or even setting up a green swan, as one may be,
Yeah.
So trust, in brand building, I mean, what is the fulcrum of trust in brand building? How do you do that? Is it yes, there is a certain expectation level. There are probably points of reference. In some cases, it may not be there as well, right? So how do you kind of straddle the two ends of the spectrum, the known and the unknown?
I think it's about being authentic and amplifying the authenticity. Sorry, let it 1, 2, 3. I just want to say this better. I think it's about the fulcrum of being authentic and then amplification of that authenticity. That's what you do in sales. That's what you do in brand building. That's what you do in marketing. Let me explain what I mean by that. Your brand has to work. It can't be a shit product.
Yeah, advertising will not sustain a bad product.
Right? Your brand has to work at a certain level. Yes, sometimes you may do the amplification first. People experience the product, then you amplify it more when you're doing a new product. But if it's an existing one, it has done good to people in some manner. It has made them feel better. It has made them better. I'm in the medicines company now, right? And how do you amplify that in the right place? We are unlikely to write a prescription drug for ourselves, right? A doctor has to write it for us. So medicines need to be amplified to the doctors and not necessarily to the end patients. Understanding of this virtuous cycle of how amplification, where amplification, what amplification, how much amplification. I may be simplifying it, but storytelling, not direct, facts. Okay? Around this do good, feel good. I think that is probably the simplified statement of how life works, inside a corporate organization. Now, you could have a brand manager working at it. You could have a B2B sales guy working at it. You could have the chairman of the corporation doing it. We have the Jeff Bezos and the Steve Jobs and the Richard Branson and Kiran Majumdar-Shaw, right? You could have the chairman of the corporation, helping you with the amplification. You could be doing it in PR and Corpcom through earned media. You could be doing, social media, which is in the brand domain. You could be doing it through your website. You could be doing it through the detailer to the doctor, so on and so forth, right? So that's when the science of brand management, the science of marketing, the science of communication, takes over. But to me, it's basically these two things. Yeah. And I must admit, Ambi Parmeshwaran, right? He's been he was my boss many, many years ago and it continues to be in touch. He, of course, tells me this. He says, Deepali, it's not as simple as you make it sound.
Yeah. Typical MB, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Actually, what, if I have to distill the previous thing that you mentioned, it's like what they say, radical candor meeting professional empathy. We are at the intersection of it all the time, right? The context, content, and content.
I'm very passionate about this whole radical candor thing. Okay, so, and we may digress a little and you can decide whether you want to edit this later. Okay. So the Radical Candor book and the title, according to me, has been most misunderstood. Okay, most people may not have read the book, but they misunderstood because they think that radical candor means giving straight feedback. The one thing,
impolite or rude was there.
absolutely. Whereas I think if you read the book, you realize, and this is important from a marketing perspective also, is to build a relationship and empathy first. Build the trust first. If you don't build the trust first, the radical candor will not work. You know, so yeah.
So it's like, just to go a little offbeat there, I read somewhere and it's stuck with me forever. It's like, unless and until you're not timing it right and not amplifying it right, a truth told late will also come across as a lie.
Let me think about it. A truth told late will come across as a lie. I'm not sure if it will come across as a lie. But it will be late. It will, I'm thinking work, when you say that. And I think a truth told late will create a brand failure. If you're not there in time to tell the story, because there is this thing called the moment marketing now, right? And world is moving at a very, very fast pace. It is cause for failure may not come across as a lie. It will not be it'll not give you a negative. It'll not give you a negative, but it won't give you success.
Yeah, the lie probably is a synonym for deficiency or underachieving.
That's right.
Could be from that point of view. Like applying the conventional English dictionary sense of the term. I think, glad you corrected that. Okay, let's do some crystal ball gazing.
Sure.
Okay, this is circa 2045.
Yes.
See, 2046, 20 years from now, right?
Yes.
And there is this young, branding, very aspirational, high energy, very committed young lady of 25 coming into the fraternity, coming into the zeitgeist. And she discovers this letter written by Deepali Naair titled State of the Art 2026.
Mm-hmm.
What is the core thing that letter would say?
Storytelling will matter whichever era you were in. It mattered 500 years ago. It will matter 500 years from now. How you tell the stories, what mechanism, technology you use to tell the stories, that will change. Human brain will be required to tell the stories. So I was just talking to somebody, who is a content producer, and they said that Copilot produced 120 consumer testimonials, but they were given to a human editor to storytell again, to humanize them, to make them appealing. So in the world of brand and marketing, storytelling will forever matter. And then you got to be an orchestra conductor, where your instruments will change, I think every 2 years, 3 years, or 5 years. So today I have the arsenal of, let's say, a website. I do see websites the way they exist going out of fashion. I did not have Instagram 10 years ago. I have it today. Something else may replace a YouTube, something else may replace a Facebook, something else may replace an Instagram, or they might stay. But orchestration will be the task of a strategist, because it will need to be tailored to your brand, to your category, to the story that you want to tell.
Nice. And thank you for giving me a stepping stone into my next question. You spoke about orchestra, and you've conducted many symphonies in your life, right? Across all these assignments and verticals that you traverse through. What is that unfinished Bach meets Beethoven meets Tchaikovsky meets, unfinished, unreleased symphony that you would want to put out in the world? It is probably still work in progress.
4-5 books.
Lovely. Join the club.
The only thing I feel sad about is that I've actually started writing about 4 of them in the last 2 years. And I have to choose my words carefully. I have not managed to find time to finish it and take it to conclusion. One of them is actually a book of fiction.
Oh, beautiful. So, yeah, I think probably we can encourage each other. I've got 3 books in the zeitgeist of my mind. One is researched and done, and I wanted to do it by the first quarter of this year. But it's definitely second quarter. If there is any in which we can kind of coerce, influence, inspire, motivate each other into kind of bringing them to fruition, so I'm up and available.
But one thing you're doing, which is an inspiration for me, is doing a video podcast. And you know that it's a production that needs to be put together,
Right.
which is why my podcast with the CEOs was an only audio, podcast, because it requires lesser effort, lesser time, lesser production. But I've had everybody around me, my network of advisors and people telling me, you should do a video podcast, Deepali. You should be on YouTube. And that's another thing that I haven't managed to do.
Hello, and let's get into our Rapido segment now with Deepali Naair. Deepali, quick fire 5 questions, please. If your brand philosophy were a Bollywood song, which one would that be? Any prompt engineering needed?
The song somehow, so the Bollywood songs actually are an issue, but the song that's coming to my head, one second. Ek din bik jayega maati ke mol.
Wow, Dharam Karam.
Yeah. Yeah. So just tell me the lyrics, I'll actually say them better.
एक दिन बीत जाएगा
माटी के मोल जग में
रह जाएंगे प्यारे तेरे बोल तुझे के होठों को देकर अपने गीत कोई निशानी छोड़ फिर दुनिया से बोल एक दिन बीत जाए.
So, ek din bik jayega maati ke mol. The lyrics of that actually are about building the brand sagas, which is that what you do, what you say will remain in this world, and that's how brand legacies are built.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you. We'll go to the next one, Deepali. The brand you admire that most people overlook.
There are 2 brands that come to mind.
2 to tango. Go for it.
One is how the religion or the faith brands are built.
I'll share something with you offline. Yeah, go ahead, please.
But I think the process of building the faith brand, assuming they're all good and positive brands, but I think to me that's fantastic. And we must study them. And we don't in the MBA colleges. But I think in the new world, I've always been a great admirer of IKEA as a brand. Not just the way they do design, not just the way they they do different things. They've always done different things from the rest of the world, the pricing, the functional design, but even the way the financial structure of that corporation is built.
Non-listed yet.
Yes, non-listed yet. I think I admire IKEA as a brand.
The one word that best describes the future of branding.
Brands will remain the same as boxes in people's minds, but the way you build the brands will change every 2 years.
So we're also with Moore's law that comes into play and other things will happen with that. That's what you're saying. Okay. The final one, the personal brand mantra you live by but rarely speak aloud.
Pay it forward.
Pay
Pay it forward.
it forward.
I think if I'm committed to other people's success, happiness, and live a life of gratefulness, if I look back at my life, I think that's been the mantra which has made everything possible for me.
Okay. Thank you. That is good. That is good. That was also intriguing, actually. It makes you think there is some kind of pattern interrupts there. I love the analogy of the song that you brought in, the Ek Din Bik Jayega. Okay, we are about to kind of close out this conversation. The conversation doesn't end here. The episode doesn't end here. It will continue. It is a journey that we've embarked on, right? So as we come towards the close of this particular, because we have to edit, right? In that metaphorical sense. If history were to write a footnote of Deepali Naair, okay, what would you want to see there? Would you want to see architecting successful campaigns, communication, design, etc., etc.? Or on the other side of it, or you can be the same side, I'll leave it to you to, discern and evaluate. Or you want to actually be known for humanizing scale?
I'd like to say Deepali Naair made millions of lives better.
So I think that allures probably veers towards the latter, wherein humanizing scale. You impacted community, at the same time you remain human with that, at the same time the business purpose of it is also self-solved, right? Did I get it right?
Yes. I think it's a motto both for my work life and personal life. I think over the years I've shifted towards brands which are purposeful, extremely do good, one after the other. IBM is essential to people's lives. What Biocon makes is super essential to people's lives. I think you can see that in that arc. And I think it's also a motto which drives my personal life, my extracurricular activities of teaching, mentoring. In fact, the motivation to write the book is also the same, of making lives better.
Lovely, lovely. So thank you and welcome again to SOHB Story, Deepali. I wouldn't say goodbye because the conversation will continue, the journey will continue, our combined / respective sagas will continue as we move from just pure brand equity to belief equity. Thank you for doing this conversation with us.
Thank you and congratulations to you. And thank you for architecting a beautiful name, SOHB Story.
Thank you, Deepali.